All right, guys, let's take a look at the swing from what I consider some of the most important angles. We're going to just look at one angle today, but one of the things you guys have probably noticed about me is if you've watched some of the roadshow videos or in-person lessons, I like to look at the swing from quarter angles. In other words, I don't really like to look at the swing straight down the line or straight face on. It's not very telling. It makes the swing seem very, very flat, two-dimensional. You can't really see what's really happening with the swing. So in this video today, we're going to look at Tiger from the rear quarter angle, because you can see so much what's happening with the lower body and the hips and the way that the dead drill works in somebody who does it so perfectly well. So let's take a look at this. First I'm going to do is play this fast a couple times so that you can just see how quickly these things are happening. And I'll go back a little bit further with Tiger, just kind of going through right as he's getting ready to pull the club. You can see he sets the club down and doesn't hang out there for very long. I know a lot of us, it's really easy when we're thinking through a bunch of stuff, we get kind of frozen, but you can take a look. He's pretty quick, sets it down, pulls the trigger and goes. And you can also see that his lower body movement, if you're just focusing exclusively on that, is quick. Now, let's look at what's going on with that lower body, the sequence of things. So a couple of things I want to draw your attention to first. And the first one, I'm going to move him to impact. And I want you to look at where his left hip is, basically where the belt is. You can see kind of a little dark spot in the turf back there. Now, if I roll him back to the top of his backswing, look at how far away he is from that little dark spot of grass. It's a pretty big movement. You can see the same thing on his right leg. If you look at his right knee in relationship to the golf ball at impact and where it is at address, there's a lot of movement in the swing, and most golfers, especially when you're kind of trying to work on swing mechanics, what we tend to see is the hips don't really move much at all and the upper body does everything. And of course, that's a recipe for failure and disaster and a sore back and a massive weak swing, big loss of power. So the lower body has to lead the movement. Now, of course, it's not everything, but it's a massive part of it, and that's why the dead drill is so important, to help you kind of just understand the bare minimums and the things that you've really got to do well in the swing, and few people do it better than Tiger. So let's take a look as we move him into the transition, what's moving and when, the sequence of it. So the first thing you're going to notice is what is moving first. You can see the club is actually still moving back. It's not really started to change directions yet, but part of his body absolutely is. And the first thing, the most obvious thing, the thing that's moving the most, which is really easy to see from this quarter angle, is of course that left knee. We've talked about that in a lot of videos where we're talking about getting that initial movement to be from the lead side. That doesn't mean that the trail side isn't doing anything, of course, but most golfers never learn to stop just shoving hard off the right side. They never learn to get the left side to work with it. So here you can see that really easy from this angle of how much Tiger's left knee is initiating all that movement. And this creates what I call pelvic expansion. It's not a real thing, I don't think, but it's something that I just use to define what I see in golfers, especially from these different angles. You can see this from face on as well, but look at the width of Tiger's hips at this point. Look pretty normal. Tiger's a normal size proportioned guy, but as he comes down into downswing and down transition, his hips right here look twice as wide. Now, of course, part of this is just an optical illusion, but part of it is also as he's hinging forward more, our hips look wider. So you can see here they look relatively narrow, and then as he gets into his squat to square move, as he's falling into that left side, like we've talked about in so many videos, and this is a pretty easy way to see how his hips just kind of fall into that left leg. It's not that he's shoving hard off the right side. And a good way to see that, watch the Nike logo on his hip. You'll see a little tiny closed hip slide here, right? This is very, very small. This is the amount that we want in a closed hip slide, but it happens so fast. If you remember, we can play the swing back at full speed again here in a minute, but this is happening super fast. And that right hip isn't really beginning to rotate. It's just falling into the left side. That left knee is moving. Weight is, pressure and everything is moving over to the left side. The right foot's getting light. So if you look at the right heel, you see how the right heel is getting light. It's not that he's shoving off of it and lifting, driving hard to drive that heel up in the air. He's falling into that left side, using that momentum to help him get everything going back in the other direction. And then he begins to rotate once he's gotten most of his pressure over on that left side, which, if you remember from one of the first videos I posted in the community, that pressure shift happens very, very fast. 90% of the pressure is done, very, very early almost into the transition, at the end of the transition in most tour players. So this is a really important thing to understand, is that to do that, you have to move quick. And you have to move from the lower body first. You can see Tiger's arms aren't really doing a whole lot of anything yet at this point. It's all that lower body movement. So left knee and left hip first. Then as he gets pressure over there, he's done his little squat to square move. Then he's going to be able to clear those hips out of the way a bit more and use that right side. He's going to push off that right big toe here a little bit, which is totally fine at this point and even necessary to get the hips fully cleared. If you're going to add a good amount of speed to your swing, a little pushing off that right toe at this point, right big toe, is a good thing. It's going to help you get those hips cleared and moved all the way laterally back to the left. Of course, you can do this just by hanging on the left side, just by using the left side movement, but we have two sides. If we balance them out, we can use them effectively to generate power. So one other thing I want to look at here more closely is the feet. If you look at his right foot at this point, you'll notice the little counter rotation I've talked about in some other videos. It's very subtle, but you can see his right heel actually move toward the target. Now, this is not something that you're going to go out there and try and do today, okay? That's not the point of this. What this is helping you understand is how he's actually moving. What is he doing? Where is his pressure? What is the core movement of what he's really doing that leads to these little things that aren't fundamentals of the swing? They're reactions, they're results of other things happening. So what you'll see is as he goes back and loads into that right leg to get ready for that left leg to initiate everything, he's rotating, he moves his weight back to his ankle for just a split second, it happens very quickly, and then as he gets ready to transition back to the left, he moves his weight onto the ball of his foot, onto his right foot, and that's going to help him activate his calf muscle, which is going to help him move quicker. You think about which muscles you have to help your hips move fast. Your glutes are part of it, of course. The hamstrings are part of it. The quads are part of it. When we talk about moving quickly, we're really talking about our lower extremity, our calf, or specifically our right calf muscle in this case, is going to help us rotate those hips out of the way quicker and move laterally more. And as long as this is not just dominated by the right side, and you're sliding, we see a lot of times where people get into this position at the top and then that left knee stays right there and then they just shove hard off the right and the left knee never moves. And this, we call left side breakdown, is not getting the movement correct. It's going to lead to just a big lateral slide because you don't have that left leg to brace and post up on. So if you look really closely at his foot, you'll see that little counter rotation where his right heel moves slightly closer, and then as he unweights that foot, all that pressure shifts over to the left. You can see that very clearly there. His right foot's very light, and then what little pressure he has left there, he can use to drive off that right big toe to help move the hips a little bit more. So hopefully this helps you understand the simplicity of the hip movements. It needs to happen fast. The dead drill is showing you what to do, and this is a great angle to start videoing your swing to see that you're doing these movements correctly and quickly. That's a really big thing. And the stuff that I've been working on with the research that I've been talking about with the arms and the club and relationship of elevation and right side versus left side and so on, it doesn't matter how you're swinging in that sense. The hip movement is pretty much always the same. There can be subtle variations. You can use less right side, you can use more left side, etc. But the big picture is, how do we get your hips to move laterally enough to make room for the arms to come down and to shallow out the club, and get them cleared open enough in order for you to have room for your arms and hands to swing down on plane instead of coming down over the top. And this feeling, and this is, again, the dead drill, and I'm working on putting this together to help you understand how to do it really fast in conjunction with the arms, which I'll be posting soon. So hopefully this helps give you a quick thing to focus on for this weekend. If you're going to go out to play golf, start getting those legs moving, getting those hips moving, and again, focus on feeling light and quick on your feet so you can clear with plenty of power and speed.